Israel has launched a strike on a northern Lebanese town, killing at least 14 people and injuring 15 others. In Riyadh, the Arab Islamic Summit's final statement has called for a return to the pre-1967 borders, demanding that the United Nations Security Council adopt a binding resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza. Prompted the passage humanitarian aid, and called for an international effort to freeze Israel's participation in the UN General Assembly. Meanwhile, at the COP29, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called upon world leaders to pay up to prevent climate-led humanitarian disasters. But for now, let's start off with the latest developments in Lebanon. Welcome to In Focus. Amid the alarming situation in Lebanon, Israel continues bombarding Beirut's southern suburbs shortly after the Israeli army warned that it would unleash a series of airstrikes on multiple neighborhoods in the area. The Washington Post highlighted the misery that the children are living in, describing them as being traumatized by war. According to the newspaper, children have often been the victims in Lebanon, which has seen hundreds of casualties in the past 6 weeks. In addition, the Lebanese Health Ministry confirmed that of the 14,000 wounded by Israeli attacks over the past year, around 10% are children. And for more in-depth analysis, we are joined from Amman by Dr. Abdel Hakim Al-Qararla, Professor of Political Science. Well, very warm welcome to our show, sir. Sir, recent Israeli airstrikes on northern Lebanon have resulted in at least 14 casualties. What are Israel's strategic objective in the recent escalation, sir? Okay, sir. Recently, Israeli airstrikes on northern Lebanon have resulted in at least 14 casualties. What are Israel's strategic objectives in this recent escalation, sir?
Actually, I think that this targeting and violence made by the Israeli occupation forces against southern Lebanon is a continuity for all the war crimes and genocide that started in Gaza Strip. And also the occupation forces opened a new front in southern Lebanon, trying to achieve other goals, including the security of the settlers in the settlements, and I'll try to destroy the military capabilities of Hezbollah in order to prevent them from having any existential threats against the security of the occupation force. And this is made through different mechanisms by targeting the civilians and the civilian families and the neighborhoods in southern Lebanon, and even in the southern neighborhood. It's all an attempt to target all and to have these divisions against Hezbollah.
Sir, Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar spoke of progress in the ceasefire talks in Lebanon. How significant do you think these discussions could they bring the war to an end?
I don't think so, because I think it's just they are prolonging the war. This attitude that Netanyahu is taking with his far-right government, we have seen that the same thing is repeating in each round of negotiations. They have been trying to have a second round of negotiation. I think Netanyahu is somehow trying to have this as an attempt to contain the oppositions inside Israel, as he is performing, as he is supporting the negotiation in order to send some message for the Israeli forces, oppositions. But at the end of the day, he doesn't want to stop this war, and he wants to achieve all his military objectives. And for that reason, we'll find that in the recent period, the development and expand of the war has been intensified in the Lebanese front, which is highlighting and confirming this opinion, just only a prolonged attitude from Netanyahu, because Netanyahu has no serious determination and will to have a ceasefire in any of the current fronts.
Okay, so you're not optimistic, sir. What do the latest airstrikes mean for the potential of a ceasefire in the region, especially given the diplomatic efforts are reportedly underway, sir? And how do you see these military actions influencing the dynamics of the negotiations?
Not because I'm pessimistic, but I don't want to be very optimistic, because we have seen these insistence by the far-right government, leading by Netanyahu. They used to fail any kind of efforts to ceasefire, whatever was in Gaza or in the Lebanese front. And that
Sir,
is so
by
clear.
the way, I'm with you, because everything you said was really true, and it's on ground, it's happening. Netanyahu doesn't want a ceasefire, sir, and is not seeking a ceasefire.
Yes, of course, Netanyahu is not seeking for a ceasefire. Even Smotrich's statements and all the far-right ministers are going to the path that they don't just want to end the Palestinian cause, achieving the goal of the occupation forces. I believe that in light of these developments and these intensifying strikes against the civilians, the power is dominating right now, and we have seen the disrespect for all the efforts of mediators, despite all the voices that are increasing every day calling for a ceasefire, because it has an implication on the security of the whole region, which increase the threats for the stability of the region. All the parties are aware of that point, but we are always facing this insistence by Netanyahu and his far-right government.
Sir, briefly, Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Naguib Mikati has met with key Arab leaders during the Arab Islamic Summit. How important is Arab diplomacy in this context, and what role can Arab states play in de-escalating the situation in Lebanon?
Of course, what is happening in Lebanon, all the Arab states are agreed regarding respecting the sovereignty of Lebanon. It's known that Lebanon is suffering from the economic implications and also other internal issues. All the Arab states are looking to Lebanon and the sovereignty of people and the displacement of the civilians there. All the Arab states are all Arab states agreed that some steps must be taken, and they are all seeking through different meetings with different actors, with other actors in the major powers, in order to work for a de-escalation and stop this violence and have a ceasefire in Lebanon.
Sir, Israel has consistently said its military actions are targeted at Hezbollah's infrastructure. However, these recent airstrikes appear to have caused significant civilian casualties. Do you think Trump's victory in the United States election encouraged Netanyahu to escalate Israel's aggression in the region?
This is associated, yes, of course, there is an alignment in the visions between Netanyahu and Trump. In addition to that, they have a very close relation, and there are some news that there is some calls that were occurred between both, and even after Trump's victory, during his campaign, he has said that Israel is a small state that need for expanding, and there are other conversations in the secret rooms. We need to know that Trump has been supporting Abraham Accords and the other deals that disrespect the Palestinian cause. I don't think I cannot be optimistic after Trump's return to the White House, because I think he will compete.
So you're not happy, sir, that Trump again is the President of the United States? You're not happy that Donald Trump is the new President of the United States or is running for another term?
Yes, of course, I'm not happy because several reasons, because he has never been neutral regarding the respecting the Palestinian rights. He has been against Palestinian people, supporting the Israeli forces. Even the previous experiences, his previous experience in the White House, we cannot be happy by his return, because all the Arab states consider the Palestinian cause as our main priority. So we are going to see a lot of developments after Trump is back to the White House, that and he will be focusing on the Palestinian cause, because it's a priority for all the Arab important cause for all the Arab states.
Dr. Abdel Hakim Al-Qarala, Professor of Political Science, thank you very much, sir, from Amman, for joining us and for your very informative insights. Thank you very much for being with us on the show today. Thank you very much, sir. And as the situation in the Middle East flares up, top leaders from Arab and Islamic nations gathered as the catastrophic situation in Gaza and Lebanon. The extraordinary Arab and Islamic summit aimed to unify regional efforts to end Israeli military actions in Gaza and Lebanon, while prompting diplomatic efforts for the security of the Middle East. Regarding Lebanon, the summit condemned the Israelis' continuous violation of the nation's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The summit also called for continued international efforts to address Israel's grave violations of international law and international humanitarian law. For more analysis, we are joined from Cairo by Dr. Hamid Faris, Professor of International Relations. A very good day, sir, and it's a pleasure to have you with us on the program. Welcome, sir. The extraordinary Arab and Islamic Summit recently reaffirmed support for Egypt's efforts to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza. What do you think are the key challenges in achieving an immediate and sustainable ceasefire, given the current political and military dynamics?
I'm so happy to be with you, and my greetings for you and for all your viewers. I think there are many current challenges because of the different strategic situation right now. Considering that we have seen that the Netanyahu government are not seeking by any ways for a ceasefire, and they also want to continue the military operations in southern Lebanon, which increase the complications. Like the Arab stances are doing their job in order to doing a lot of efforts regarding the de-escalation and ceasefire negotiations, especially the Arab-Egyptian, especially Egypt has been doing great effort even in the Cairo summit, where about 31 states has been joining in addition to other international organizations. The summit that aims to supporting the self-determination right of the Palestinian people, and also on other Arab summits that have been confirming about the importance of aid delivery. And one of the main rules the Egyptian rule has been doing is they have been standing against the Israeli scheme in the forced displacement of the Palestinian people. Considering that this point, the Egyptian leadership has been talking regarding that point. So, as President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has said before, Egypt will never allow to liquidify the Palestinian cause and will never allow that to happen on the account of other neighboring states. So, having such a summit in this time is an evidence for the unity among the Arab states, and considering the Palestinian cause as a priority among all the Arab states, and confirming that in the coming period will be more effort in order to free the membership of Israel in the United Nations, especially that when Israel had joined the General Assembly of the United Nations was there according to 180 resolution, and in its third term confirming that Israel will...
Sir, the summit placed full responsibility for the failure of ceasefire efforts on Israel, citing its reversal of agreements. How do you interpret this strong stance, and what does it suggest about the diplomatic environment surrounding the conflict?
Of course, there has been a lot of stances confirming that the current political environment is unprepared for a ceasefire, especially that Netanyahu's government is moving the directions to gain more time in order to achieve their goals, which is liquidifying the Palestinian cause, as it aligning with the Palestinian cause. Because the Palestinian cause is really suffering in front of the Palestinian Israeli occupation forces. What was so clear through the division attempts in the West Bank, not only in the Gaza Strip, as Israel has divided the Gaza Strip into two parties, and right now they are arming the settlers. Ben Gvir has armed about 150.
Its closing statement. The summit described the Israeli actions in Gaza as a genocide and condemned the ongoing human rights violations. What impact do you think these statements will have on Israel's international standing, sir?
Israel has proved that they have never respected the international law. It's so clear during the previous actions, and this was so clear also with the ICJ ruling these provisional measures, including the importance of aid delivery inside Israel, and the ruling came that Israel is doing a genocide and war crimes, especially that Israel used with different crimes and different strategies inside Gaza Strip. Even Karim Khan and the ICC has said before that there is a memorandum that will be issued to arrest a lot of ministers inside the Israeli government.
Thank you so much. That was Dr. Hamid Faris, Professor of International Relations. So thank you very much for your informative knowledge and your insights. And now let's move on to Azerbaijan's capital Baku, where the UN's climate summit, the COP29, kicked off amid mounting environmental and economic challenges.
gives me great pleasure to declare open the 29th session of the Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change.
COP29 must tear down the walls of climate finance.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres told world leaders at the COP29 summit to pay up to prevent climate-led humanitarian disasters and said time was running out to limit the destructive rise in global temperatures. Nearly 200 nations have gathered at the annual UN Climate Summit in Baku. This year's summit is focused on raising hundreds of billions of dollars to fund the global transition to cleaner energy sources and limit the climate damage caused by carbon emissions.
Everywhere. Destroyed homes, increased insurance premiums, everywhere. And this is a story of avoidable injustice.
Delving more into this, joining us from Rabat is Mohammed bin Abbo, climate and sustainable development expert. A very warm welcome, sir, to our show. Sir, with this year's summit dubbed as the Finance COP, how can the summit ensure climate finance reaches the countries most affected by climate change?
We are talking about the summit which is focusing on financing. It's a continuity for the consultation negotiations that happened in the previous summit. We are speaking about funding and compensation for the casualties that has occurred because of the climate change. The previous summit has been talking about a fund regarding the losses and for this state that has been suffering from hurricanes and floods. In the summit, we are still discussing regarding that fund. The states are asking about their share, and they are being focusing on the 20 major powers that contribute with the most contribute with the highest amount of emissions. So today, yes, it's a financial funding summit. How we can be able to offer and raise all that money to help those states and that are most affected by climate change. Most of these states are in Africa, in Latin America, and the east of Asia.
Sir, since this year's summit mainly concentrates on financing developing countries to combat, of course, climate change, how might the COP29 bridge the divide between developed and developing nations on climate action and finance, sir?
In order to reduce that gap, we need to have some credibility during the negotiations, not only just a summit after a summit. We are talking about the funding, and until now we didn't find that funding with the values and numbers we asked for. We have seen that the fund, the green fund that was proposed in the previous summit, and the other 3 or 4 funds for funding these projects regarding climate change. Yes, there is a gap, a serious gap between the developed states and developing countries, and we need to find the needed fund Along that year, this money is not raised yet.
Sir, of course, as the COP29 just today is the second day, so we still have a few weeks, a few days, more than we have 2 weeks to discuss this. But now we have to wrap up this episode. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Climate and sustainable development expert Mohammed bin Abu, and that wraps up our episode for In Focus. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.